Q37 Q50, the ultimate driving machine. Now, I'm not talking about making it the quickest, the fastest, the highest horsepower, the most beastly race car out there, but what I am talking about is what components are necessary to make your VQ37 Infiniti Q50 a multi-purpose, solid daily driver, very well-performing, well-rounded, ultimate driving machine. Now, I'm making this video because I think that with my personal Q50, I have almost very nearly attained this goal. Now, there's still some upgrades that I'd like to make and some components that I would like to change, and I'll talk about that later on in this video, but I think I've gotten very, very close to that ultimate goal, so let's get into it right now. How do we make your VQ37 Q50 the ultimate driving machine? First of all, what the hell am I talking about when I say ultimate driving machine? I'm talking about, like I said, a dual purpose or a multi-purpose vehicle that you can drive comfortably on a daily basis, that makes decent power, handles well, feels good to drive to and from work, but you have no problems jumping in and driving a couple of hours to a racetrack, pushing the car on a track day or taking it to the drag strip, running down the strip and having a good time, but then again, getting up Monday morning and driving to work. That to me is a driver's car. So on this rainy Friday the 13th, let's just jump right into it and get into the horsepower aspect. If you guys have been following me for any length of time, you know that there are certain bolt-ons that I just don't recommend for various reasons. You know, either they're super expensive. Ultimately, what it comes down to is bang for your buck or dollar to horsepower, and some of them just don't make sense in the VQ37. Essentially, there's only a few things that I would recommend. Now, you can go colder intakes if you want. You know how I feel about colder intakes. Check out my colder intake video for more information on that. But just allowing your vehicle to take a little deeper breath, essentially, is what I'll say. So you can go colder intakes, or you can go just dry drop-in filters. You know, performance gains over dry drop-in filters going to colder intakes are negligible, but that's neither here nor there. Just helping your car take a little deeper breath isn't going to hurt. The bottleneck on these cars, like on most vehicles, is the catalytic converter. So going with a high-flow catalytic converter or a test pipe for off-road use only is going to eliminate or mitigate that bottleneck. You're bringing in a lot of air into the vehicle. You need to be able to exhale, right? So opening up that dam, that bottleneck in those catalytic converters, allowing your car to breathe freely out, is going to help you unlock some of that horsepower. Pairing that with a quality catback system, that's going to make all the difference. It's going to allow that exhaust to flow freely out, completely out of the system. There are various catback options out there. Some sound better than others. Of course, I recommend my custom Speed Culture Studios catback system. But there's others on the market that will perform quite well, and that's going to complete that. So pairing that with some tuning, some EcuTech software with the magic of a reputable tuner like Soho Motorsports, that's going to help you unlock the peak potential and help all of these modifications work together. The combination of modifications and tuning that I just described is going to get you anywhere from 335 to 345 wheel horsepower and around 270 to 280 foot-pounds of torque. And that is a really nice horsepower curve and a very flat torque curve through the RPM range, starting at 3,000, 3,500 RPM all the way up to 7,500 RPM. Your horsepower is going to steadily increase throughout that RPM range, and your torque is just going to sit there flatline all the way across, all the way through the power band, which is really nice. So it's not a massive torque number, but you're gonna feel that torque through the RPM range, which is nice. It doesn't fall off. It makes third and fourth gear a lot of fun. It continues to pull all the way through. The car loves to be in those higher RPM, higher gear, higher speed ranges. So it's a lot of fun to drive on those sweeping canyon roads or on a track day with a really open track. It's a beast. If you want to make a little bit more power, a little bit more torque than that, there's things you can pursue. If you want to do flex fuel, go 85. I've seen results from a 2 horsepower increase to a 14 or 15 horsepower increase, which is significant. Headers, the bang for the buck for me just isn't there. It might be able to get you up closer to that 350 horsepower range. That's up to you to decide. People will do the ported upper and lower intake plenum. I've seen a loss of horsepower when it comes to that, so it's just up to you to pursue those. But again, the bang for your buck, the dollar to horsepower ratio, just the return on your investment gets lower and lower with parts like that. I always say it's cheap and easy to make 340 wheel. It gets really expensive to make 350. You really can't do anything with that power if you can't put it to the ground. So we'll talk about the next components. These are big, heavy cars, 36, 38, almost 4,000 pounds. There's a lot of body roll. The suspension is soft. So a modification and upgrade that I talk about in almost every single modification video is Rotational sway bars. It's going to make a world of difference. To this day, it is still one of my, if not my, very favorite upgrades made to this car so far. It's just going to keep that car planted, going to keep the tires flat on the pavement, and allow you to really manipulate the vehicle a lot better than you would with the factory sway bars. Huge difference. Rotational sway bars, linked in the description. Combining that with a solid suspension setup, that's vital. There's discussion on whether or not you should go springs or coilovers. I had really good luck with my Tane S-Tech lowering springs, lowered the car about 1.5 inches, handled really well, rode really well. But when we're talking about developing or creating the ultimate driving machine, you need like I said, a multi-purpose or you need a dual purpose or a multi-purpose vehicle. You need a car that can perform in every situation. Coilovers really is the only way to attain that. It gives you the adjustability. You can adjust ride height. You can adjust, obviously stiffness and the dampening settings, and just you can really tailor it to the specific event that you are attending. You want it to ride a certain way on a daily driver, but then if you're going to have a track day, you might have a certain setup. If you're doing autocross, you might change that setup a little bit. If you're going to the drag strip, you might need to change it a little bit more. So having coilovers is what's going to get you closer to that ultimate driving machine. Speaking of putting that power to the ground, we got to talk about tires. Now, if you want a decent budget, relatively budget-friendly, high-performance tire, the Firestone Firehawk 8500 is a good option for you. But again, like I've said in my Firestone Firehawk 8500, Jesus, long name. As I've said in the review of those tires, if you're making close to 300 foot-pounds of torque and you do a lot of dig racing, it's probably not the tire for you. Getting a little heat in them helps, but after they get real hot, they do get a little bit greasy. Lateral grip is really decent, but again, the straight line grip starts to fall off once you start making over 300 horsepower and 300 foot-pounds of torque. That obviously is in a rear-wheel drive setup. Will, however, say that they are a great all-around tire, and that's sort of what we're talking about here. They're decent for daily driving. They're quiet, they're soft, they ride good. They wear pretty evenly, and they don't wear all that fast, but you still get pretty decent grip. They've actually done quite well for me in cooler temperatures and in wet conditions. Obviously not an all-year or all-season tire. They're not good in the snow. We found that out this winter. But for a well-rounded overall performance tire, which you change out in the wintertime, highly recommended. You could go for, if you want to spend quite a bit more money, you could go with the Michelin Pilot Sports PS4S's. Again, not a good winter tire, but very good grip, very good durability on the track. That's a top of most people's lists when it comes to performance tires. Go with the Toyo Proxys R888s. Again, not a good winter tire, probably not a very good daily driver tire, just because they're going to most likely wear pretty fast on you. I think they are a little bit noisy. I've never run them personally, but it's just some feedback that I've gotten. But it's typical on a tire like that. Really good grip. It's going to be a great performing tire on the track for you. But we're talking about a car that is well-rounded, overall performing car that you're going to be able to drive on a daily basis, as well as at the track. And a Toyo Proxy, probably not the way to go. Continental Extreme Contacts, though, they get very highly recommended. The DSW06, I always forget the way that those numerics go, but really good, pretty much all-season tire. People run them all year round, even up north, but really good grip in the summertime and in wet conditions as well. That is getting toward the higher dollar price point, but a very good overall performing tire, and that actually might be the way to go if we're truly talking about a car that checks every box. Now, we got the power and we got the handling. We got to talk about the stopping. A good solid braking setup, that's going to be very important. It's going to be vital in developing the ultimate driving machine. So we're talking about the Q50 specifically, so we're limited on our braking options. The Non-sport Akebonos actually perform quite well if you pair them with a good set of pads and some stainless steel braided brake lines and some decent high temperature, high performing fluid and a decent non-sport rotor. You're not going to have any problems, especially if you are not a super aggressive driver. Now, I pushed them really, really hard at Tail of the Dragon, multiple laps. They did eventually, I did get a little bit of brake fade, which can be scary. It can be scary in certain scenarios. But overall, a very, very solid braking setup. If you have a drilled and slotted rotor with Stop Tech pads and some Motul 5.1 brake fluid, it's going to be a decent setup. I personally did upgrade to the sport brakes just because I wanted to mitigate that brake fade. But again, same combination is recommended. If you have some good pads like Hawk or, like I said, Stop Tech Street Performance pads, which are good dual purpose pad, quiet, low dust, good bite, good for track use, but they don't bother you on a daily basis. I do have those stainless steel braided brake lines that I mentioned. You can get them from Concept C Performance or Z1 Motorsports, obviously. Motul 5.1 is a high performance, high temperature brake fluid. That combination with a nice rotor. Now I have R1 Concepts drilled and slotted rotors. It's going to help move those braking gases, get rid of that brake dust, and help distribute the heat a little more evenly and dissipate the heat a little more efficiently. That's going to help reduce brake fade. Now, that has happened, and it is a good upgrade in my opinion. However, this is one thing that I would like to improve upon. These rotors, especially the sport rotors, the bigger rotors, they're very heavy. You're going to actually notice it on the road. I've noticed a decrease in my acceleration abilities. My 0 to 60 time has suffered because I've added several pounds per corner. Not only that, I'm trying to spin much heavier rotors in the back in this rear-wheel drive vehicle. I've noticed now that I have to shift to third gear to get to 60 miles an hour, where before I could wind out second gear and hit 60, and that would keep my 0 to 60 times down. But now my engine is working just as hard as it was before, but it's not able to spin my wheels as fast, so therefore my 0 to 60 time and my acceleration has gone down, and that's not good. I didn't say that right. My 0 to 60 time has not gone down. My 0 to 60 performance has gone down. My time has gone up. So the upgrade that I would make there is going with something like a Z1 Motorsports two-piece lightweight rotor. There's something like 10 pounds per rotor in the front, lighter, and 5 pounds per rotor lighter in the rear, which is a massive decrease in weight. What is it, like 30 overall pounds? That's significant in just unsprung weight alone, but now you're talking about rotational mass as well. That would make a huge difference. So it's a little bit spendy, but that's going to kind of get you up there. They're directional. They help dissipate that heat. They help move those brake gases and brake dust away from the rotor. And again, just the lightweight characteristics of those rotors is going to make the car perform a lot better. Another good segue, talking about rotational mass and overall weight, a good set of lightweight wheels is going to make a massive difference as well. So many budget-friendly wheels are up around 30 pounds or more. That's just insane. Expecting your car to perform with 30-pound wheels, that's just wheels, not tires, wheels. It's a big ask. I'm currently running the Forge Star F14s. They're about 22 pounds or just over 22 pounds. Also very light for a wheel in this price point. RPF 1s is another good option. Those are under 20 pounds, something like 18 pounds. Definitely want to stay under 25 pounds. If you can get as close to 20 pounds as you can get, the better. So just really pay attention to that. I would move to a much lighter wheel moving forward if I were to make another move to make this car perform a little bit better. Moving on. One more major upgrade that I would recommend would be an LSD. Whether you go Z1 Motorsports or you get one of those kits that you can modify your existing rear differential and making it essentially a limited slip, I would go that route. The open diff is just nonsense. You can't put the power to the ground. And we're talking about the Firestone Firehawk Indy 500s. If the car didn't have an open diff, you would get a lot better straight line grip with those tires because you'd be putting power to both the tires rather than just one. So LSD is going to make a lot of difference. It's going to help you control the rear end of the vehicle a lot better, and it's going to help you get that rear end grip when you're trying to accelerate. So that would be one upgrade, one addition that I would make to this vehicle as well. It's the one thing I think that this car is really missing. So moving forward, if I were to make a significant upgrade to enhance the performance of this vehicle, it'd be the Z1 Motorsports LSD. There's a couple other things that I'm going to touch on, but ultimately, that's sort of it. Those are the key components that are really going to get this car performing quite well. It's going to be faster than 90% of cars that you come across on your daily commute, but it's not going to be super fast. You're not going to put down blistering 0 to 60 times. You're not going to put down blistering 60 to 120 times. But the car is going to be a joy to drive. It's going to be snappy. It's going to have a nice little bit of torque. You're definitely going to be able to spin the tires. You'll be fine. With these key elements, you get a little bit of the speed. You get dramatically improved handling, the ability to put the power down to the ground efficiently with a good set of tires, and braking, being able to stop on a dime consistently and resist that brake fade. That's huge. That's huge to me. So you're gonna have a very, very well-rounded Q50 with the components mentioned in this video. Now, a couple of other things that I would mention: adding some chassis stiffening components, a rear diff brace from Z1 Motorsports. Look for some Soul Function braces, the M-shaped brace, the M brace from Soul Function for the front of this vehicle to help increase a little bit of rigidity. And the Z1 Motorsports rear subframe bushing collars. That's going to help you, again, try to transfer that torque a little bit more efficiently from the drivetrain to the tires to the ground. There are a couple other little accessories out there that you could look to just kind of add little bits here and there, but ultimately their return on investment is minimal at this point. But there is one thing: if you do any spirited driving, it's something that I had in this car a while back, and took out for various reasons, including a back injury that I had sustained. There was a dude back in the day that gave me a lot of crap, and he just loved to chime in and talk shit on my videos only because of this. He could not understand why I put a Sparco R100 racing seat in a Q50. Just couldn't get it. I did like a 200 mile in one day mountain run, right, a couple of years ago in these seats. Very difficult. By the end of the day, you're very fatigued. You're constantly having to fight the vehicle and fight to hold yourself in the seat. I don't care what vehicle it is. If you do any spirited driving, having a seat with some additional bolstering is going to make a huge difference. It becomes dangerous. It becomes dangerous driving in a situation like that where you're constantly having to battle to keep yourself in the seat. If you're really pushing your vehicle, having a seat that holds you in place is vital. So that's really it from this point. I don't think I missed anything, but those are the components that I've added to this vehicle. I've added other pieces, obviously, but those are some of the main pieces that I would suggest if you're trying to make your Q50 the ultimate driving machine. Again, it's not going to be the fastest. It's not going to be the highest horsepower. Not going to be the baddest thing on the street. But if you're trying to really maximize the performance of your VQ37 Q50, these are the components that I would suggest. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. If you think I might have missed something, and I very well could have, please leave those down in the comment section below as well. I get to every single one of them, so I appreciate you guys following along. If it's not May 21st, 2022 yet, make sure you get yourself entered to win the LED RGB front Infinity emblem for the 2014 to 2017 Infinity Q50. That giveaway is happening again. Your last chance to enter to win is midnight, May 21st, 2022. Link to that video in the description below as well. Thank you guys very much for watching. I appreciate the continued support. We'll see you in the next one.